Well, we have about 7 minutes or so to go. Let's talk about ACC football weekend.
Yeah, so I'm here in the Raleigh-Durham area. That's why I'm right in the middle of the ACC country. I think the ACC is kind of getting a bad knock. Everybody thinks Clemson's the only good team in the conference. But I think what you've seen in football is with the college football playoff, all the top players, all the four-star and five-star players are just going to a handful of schools. Alabama, Clemson, Georgia's entered the mix, Oklahoma. And those schools have separated them so much, it's almost like there's two tiers of football. So the SEC, and I guess LSU, you got to put them in there too. So the SEC talks about how great they are, but they have just so much more talent funneled into them. The bottom of their conference, their teams aren't that much better than the bottom of the ACC, and then same with the middle of the two conferences. As far as the big game in the ACC this week, Louisville has really put together an interesting season. Their coach Steve Satterfield was at Appalachian State, and he's really built that program up into a top 25 program, you could say, because they're getting that kind of recognition. They're in the top 25 this week, and they're going to play Clemson Saturday. So we'll find out how much they've improved. I think most of it is they're just a more disciplined and better team than they were before last year when the program really went in the tank. And they may not match up physically with Clemson, but it's an interesting matchup to see them having a bounce-back season like this. They're 4-2, 2-1 in the ACC, and of course Clemson's unbeaten still.
Yeah, Tom, you talk about Louisville. That's a good point. I'm glad that you brought them up because I know they wanted to get Jeff Brown, but he opted to stay at Purdue. But and Bobby Petrino obviously left the program in tough shape, although he had some good success. Are you surprised that Louisville is actually is much better at this point than initially when Petrino left? I know Willie Taggart turned it around, obviously, to get it to Petrino, and then they had some success. Go ahead, Tom.
Well, I'm not that surprised, but only because I'm familiar with Steve Satterfield, the work he did at Appalachian State.
Okay.
That's a very good program at Appalachian State, and he's obviously a very good coach. So I guess the only surprise is he's been able to turn it around quickly, and that the players, they bought into having a more disciplined program than Bobby Petrino was.
Yeah, that is pretty interesting. What are your thoughts about the Miami Hurricanes beating Virginia over the weekend?
That was a big surprise. I thought, Miami, I didn't expect them to do anything this year after some of their results, losing to North Carolina. And Virginia is just a real solid program. That's still a hard one to figure out. Virginia has another tough one this week against Duke. That Coastal race is wide open. You might see a team with 2 losses win the Coastal Division, which is what happened last year when Pitt was only 7-5 in overall, but 6-2 in the Coastal Division, and they won their half and played Clemson in the ACC championship game. I would expect to see that again, a 2-loss team.
Okay, and let's talk about Manny Diaz. We have another few more minutes to go here, but Manny Diaz, do you think that he was the right hire? I know Mark Richt coached there a couple of years, and I think he probably was. I think they Hurricanes got the wrong Mark Richt when he was at the tail end of things. But Manny Diaz appears to be a very high energy guy, and of course when he's involved in the defense, they're awfully good.
Yeah. Coaches lose their edge. I think that's probably what happened to Mark Richt. But Manny Diaz, that's definitely not a concern. The thing I like about Manny Diaz, he talked about this at the ACC kickoff back in July, is that Miami has lived off a reputation for having tons of talent, and he wants to have more of a blue-collar mentality to the program, and I think that'll make them more consistent. It might be a tough transition, but I think it'll make them a more consistent program. It's something a little bit something to be proud of. It's a program like that, as opposed to they had so many bad actors on those winning teams over the years. Kellen Winslow Jr. being the worst of them all with his soldier statements. But
bad.
I really thought that was interesting what Manny Diaz talked about. He's trying to change the culture that we're not going to talk about just how talented we are. We're going to work, and we're going to be blue collar and prove we're a good team.
Well, you and I can appreciate the blue collar way. I'm from Metro Detroit, and we're blue collar people. Louis, and so we can appreciate Louis. You want to add something very quickly before we go on to Barry Foote?
About college football, I mean, again, I'm not too super well versed in college sports, so I don't know what I can contribute of substance here, but.
Well, hey, listen, okay, Tom. We're breaking him into the college football, so he did have an opportunity to go ahead and cover Florida Atlantic, though, against drawing a blank, Middle Tennessee. So that was his first go around. Tell him what he has to expect when he's covering college football.
The unexpected.
Yeah, the unexpected.
I guess the best thing about college football is the cultural aspect of it, the regionality, and each different school has their own particular culture. That's something to admire. But, it's something I need to verse myself in a lot more, considering I'm doing it a lot more now than I was, say, before, when I wasn't as involved in college sports.
Well, that's fair enough. But let's go back to the Carolinas. You talk about a state or states that are definitely have a lot of good programs. Let me tell you, between North and South Carolina, they're loaded. They really, really are. I mean, I'm not talking about just the Clemsons, the North Carolina and the South Carolina, but when you look at some of the other schools in the area, like Appalachian State as of late, NC State, Wake Forest, they're having some pretty good teams, and the list goes on and on and on. So, and you being right smack, and Duke has a good program as well. So, in your backyard.
David Cutcliffe at Duke is just such a great coach. I learn something from him every time he has his Tuesday media sessions because he's so willing to share football wisdom.
And for a lot of those folks that are listening, David Cutcliffe has a tentative visitors when they bring in the Mannings to educate the troops, don't they?
Yeah. And then, people around here that follow Duke, the New York Giants got a lot of criticism for taking Daniel Jones with the 6th pick. He hasn't done anything that surprised people that follow Duke. They knew that was a good pick.
Yeah, all right, let's talk about that for a moment, and then we'll give you an opportunity really quickly to preview what you're going to talk about Thursday. Do you feel that the Giants took too much unjust criticism by taking Daniel Jones? Because I'll tell you, Askins hasn't done anything with the Washington Redskins.
Yeah, people were talking about his stats and things like that. Well, he never really had a good offensive line. Duke's offensive line this year is a lot better, which is one reason they might have a shot to contend for the division title. So he always had just that average line at best. But then worse than that is wide receivers. The other guys he played with are in the NFL now. He suffered from a lot of drop balls. So, but from the first time he showed up as a freshman and was on the scout team as a redshirt, the varsity defensive backs, that's always been a strength of Duke. They've sent a lot of DBs to the NFL over the years. They said from the very beginning, this guy's an NFL quarterback. He's got an NFL arm. So you couldn't go by his stats at Duke. You had to go by what you saw from him in his ability when he had his good games, when Duke wasn't maybe outmatched up front. And then, of course, David Cutcliffe who's kind of a quarterback whisperer. He always talked about what a smart player and hard worker and well prepared. He said Daniel Jones is always prepared for games. That's one reason he gives him credit for doing so well as a rookie as the Giants. In fact, he told the Giants when they drafted him, you don't have to worry about him being ready to play.
Well said there, Tom. So, all right, well, we look forward to having you as a regular contributor here on the Sports Exchange. I think what we're going to do, though, is we're going to have you doing football on Tuesday, and then we're going to have you do college basketball on Thursday so you can talk about the ACC Media Date, and we'll discuss that a bit more tomorrow. But meanwhile, Tom, thanks for being on the Sports Exchange, and looking forward to having you on as a regular contributor, Tom. Thank you very much, Tom Shanahan. And tell them, before you get off the line, tell everybody where they can get Ray of Light one more time.
Yeah, just go to my Twitter page, Shanny4055, or my website, ShanahanReport.com, and that's Shanahan, just like Kyle Shanahan, the 49ers coach.
Yeah, and Tom's very nice to allow us to take some of his material and put it on the South Florida Tribune page. So we appreciate your graciousness in allowing us to do that, Tom. So thank you very much. So meanwhile, we'll go back to work on Thursday, and we'll talk tomorrow. All right, Tom?
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, Tom. Thank you very much. We'll talk to you Thursday. I'll talk to you sooner than that. All righty?
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye. So, all right, Louis, let's talk about the subject you're all too familiar with, and we're going to be talking about baseball with Barry Foote. You've obviously done a little bit of homework on Barry. What are your thoughts about what we can expect that you'll be talking to him about
I
over
guess
the next little while?
it's a little bit like when, I interviewed Littell for the first time in July. It was a little bit like this old versus new. Obviously, like, I didn't play baseball, so I don't have the experiences and the relationships formed the same way that he does given his tenure career in the major leagues. But, you prefaced it before the show. He's a bit of an old school kind of guy.
Right.
And, me, I love the old school. I think baseball's history is the only one that seems to repeat itself in a myriad of ways, but it'll be interesting to get contrasting views on his side compared to my side. I'm excited to talk to him. Yeah, anytime I have an opportunity to talk to somebody who played in Major League Baseball, what I consider like the epitaph of like human happiness, in my opinion, just because of my affinity for the sport, it's gonna be amazing. And I'm excited to hear what he has to say. I'm excited to hear about his answers to your questions that you're gonna ask, and maybe the questions that'll spurt into my head, which I'm sure they will, given it's my forte, baseball. My lane that I prefer to drive in, when we're talking sports. But no, it's gonna be fun. I'm like looking forward to him calling in, and yeah, I can't wait to. I'm not gonna use the expression that we like to use, but it'll be fun. I'm excited to see what he has to contribute to our show tonight.
So let's talk about the Astros and Yankees a little bit.
Look, you and me talked about this before last Thursday's show, and you genuinely thought the Yankees were going to win this series, but I just don't see that happening right now. And a lot of that, has to come down to just, we can talk about Houston's pitching all you want, but I was watching the game today, and for those of you who don't know, and I'm sure by the time this comes out, obviously the game will be over, but Houston won 4-1. They have a 2-1 lead in the series. Houston just grinds out at bats, man. And in this era today, when we have teams that strike out, in the way that they do, when we're baseball kind of hitting has, I would argue, devolved to the point of launch angle and this idea of the 3 true outcomes where we're either trying to homer, strike out, or get on base. It's very nice to see a team like the Astros who don't strike out. In fact, 2 of their hitters this year, I believe, or 3 of them that I'm aware of, Yuli Gurriel, their first baseman, Alex Bregman, their third baseman, and Altuve, all struck out under 100 times this year. I'll have to double-check that on Altuve, but Gurriel, a full-time player now 3 years in the majors, has yet to strike out 70 times in a season. That's pretty incredible, but here's Barry, so, we'll talk about this some more.
All right, well, on the South Florida Tribune hotline, we have Barry Foote. Well, Barry, welcome back to the Sports Exchange. I got a new co-host here, Louis Addeo-Weiss, a guy that knows baseball too well. Thanks for being back on here, Barry.
You're welcome. Glad to be here.
We're glad to have you. So anyways, Louis Addeo-Weiss, you have a chance to meet Barry Foote.
Barry, nice to meet you.
My pleasure.
So anyways, just to give Louis a little bit of an overview, even though you and I have talked about this before with a previous co-host, okay, Barry and I met one another back in 1984, and we worked together with the Fort Lauderdale Yankees, who, by the way, won the Florida State League title. Then you were the manager of the year. And then when our paths crossed in 1987, when I was the director of public relations for the Gastonia Rangers, and Barry was managing the Myrtle Beach Blue Jays, who, by the way, won the title, and Barry was manager of the year. So when it comes to managing, Barry knows what he's talking about. Barry, how about me bringing up some old championship stuff to you, buddy?
Well, I appreciate that. I need a little bit of free publicity once in a while.
Well, what the heck? You earned it, man. You won a championship. You got to go ahead and promote championship stuff, right?
Well, I had good players. If you have good players, like somebody told me years ago, when you got the mules, you lose, and when you got the horses, you win.
All right, well, let's talk about those good players. We got a little bit of fun with this one, okay, Barry? Why don't you talk about, and by the way, Fort Lauderdale Stadium has been demolished, as well as Lockhart Stadium. They're building a soccer facility over there. So I drove by our old stomping grounds. Not there no more, Bear. And I feel it hurt me to have to drive by there to see our old stomping grounds gone. So, but Louis is a big expert on baseball. Why don't you go ahead and talk about some of the players that you managed in both of those 2 spots?
Well, with the Yankees, probably my best player on that ball club, as far as position players, was Orestes Estrada, who went on to play in the big leagues and also played in Japan. Was actually a pretty big star in Japan, and I had Lombardi was my catcher.